Joining me now, Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Senator, let me ask you with your reaction to the man who is soon to be the most powerful person on the earth, I don't think that's hyperbole, using his platform to insult and attack a union president in Indianapolis.
I mean, I think, what can we say, Chris? The word incredible or unbelievable is no longer applicable to Mr. Trump because he does one crazy thing after another. But to attack a local labor leader in Indianapolis who has fought valiantly for his workers to protect the jobs of his steel workers is really unbelievable. But as is usually the case with Mr. Trump, there's more beneath the surface. And that is what he was really doing is, I think, sending a message to the entire trade union movement that do not stand up and fight for working people, or we're going to go after you. We need to, in my view, we need to grow the trade union movement in America. We need to make it easier for workers to be able to engage in collective bargaining. And what Trump is saying is exactly the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, the point you made about how valiantly Chuck has fought for those folks in those factories. I mean, you know him. I think the two of you had breakfast on Election Day, and
That's right.
You've been pretty invested in the Carrier factory.
Right.
In many ways, the reason it was a story, I believe you said, was because of the leadership of Chuck Jones.
Right. No, Chuck has done a great job. And I think what Mr. Trump has responded to is the very correct and truthful assertions that Chuck Jones has made. And that is, yes, good news, some jobs were saved at Carrier, and we're all happy about that. Bad news is that more than half of the jobs are still going to be outsourced to Monterrey, Mexico, where people are paid $3 an hour, despite Trump's campaign promise that he would save all of the jobs. Trump told us he was going to stand up to large corporations who are outsourcing. What he ended up doing in the case of United Technologies and Carrier is give them a tax break. And I think what Trump's ire comes from, his anger comes from, is that Chuck Jones told the truth.
You know, when you talk about what his rhetoric was like on the campaign trail, referring to the president-elect, and what his policies would be like, today we got his announcement of his nominee for Department of Labor, a business magnate, Mr. Puzder, who runs Carl's Jr., who doesn't believe in minimum wage increases. What's your response to that?
Well, my response is that everybody who voted for Mr. Trump, who believed his campaign promises, who thought that he was really going to stand up to the establishment and fight for working people, please pay attention to the reality of what he's doing rather than his campaign rhetoric. I think almost everybody in America, Chris, including many Republicans, understand that we need to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, in my view, $15 an hour. So he hires somebody who makes his money through fast food by paying people very low wages. Many of these people have to get public assistance from taxpayers through Medicaid, through food stamps. That's the way this guy does business. This is a guy who thinks that automation should replace higher paid fast food workers. So you got an anti-worker Secretary of Labor nominee rather than fulfilling Mr. Trump's promises of saying he was going to side with the working people of this country.
It's interesting what you just said, because my question to you is, are you confident? There's a real question right now before us as we enter this era of how much reality is going to matter. Honestly, I mean, I think there's a confidence in some ways that politicians like yourself, I think even this White House of the current president had, that if you produce tangible gains, ultimately the truth wins out. And the question here to you is, are you confident that's still the case? That should it be the case that wages decline, that outsourcing continues, that the economic squeeze on the middle class continues under President Trump, that folks will pin it on him and not pin it on you or the Democrats or some other scapegoat?
Well, you're raising a very profound question. And that is, what do you do when you have a president-elect, soon-to-be president, who, and I say this not happily, but I think most people who observe them would agree, is a pathological liar, who changes his mind every single day. And when you're asking, does any of that matter? And I think the answer is, and I am working very hard on this, and we need the help of the American people, obviously, is to build a movement of millions of people who actually are following reality.
Right.
Okay, and that's the challenge. Real change in this country, I am more and more convinced of it, is not going to come from Capitol Hill. It's going to come from grassroots America.
All right, so you and I are going to be in Kenosha, Wisconsin on Monday. Kenosha is a fascinating place. It's obviously got an amazing labor tradition. It's a place where people made car engines for years. Those jobs have gone away. It's got now an Amazon warehouse. It went for Barack Obama twice. Donald Trump won it narrowly. We're going to have a town hall. What are you looking for? What do you want to see in this event that we do together on Monday?
Well, first of all, I want the truth. I really want to hear why people voted the way they voted. I want to hear why people voted for Donald Trump, what their expectations were, why they did not vote for Secretary Clinton. Second of all, I want to bounce off of people their views about what a progressive agenda is. Do they support raising the minimum wage to a living wage? Do they support pay equity for women? Do they support a real new trade policy which will demand that corporate America invests in this country? So I think what we want to do is, what kind of agenda makes sense to working people? What was the attractiveness of Donald Trump?
All right, Senator Bernie Sanders, thanks for your time tonight. I'll see you next in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
And be sure to be here with us on Monday for our town hall in Wisconsin, a special edition of All in America, Bernie Sanders in Trump country. Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.